Before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Lena's childhood was not an easy one. She grew up in a small town where her parents owned a local grocery store. They were strict and demanding, constantly pushing Lena to excel in school and sports. While Lena was a bright student, she struggled with sports, which her parents saw as a critical component of her development. As Lena got older, the tension between her and her parents increased. She felt suffocated by their expectations and their lack of support for her interests. Finally, when Lena turned 18, her parents gave her an ultimatum: either give up her dreams of becoming a writer and become a cashier at their store, or leave home. Lena chose to leave home. With nowhere to go, she bounced around from friends' couches to cheap motels, taking odd jobs to make ends meet. Despite the challenges, Lena never gave up on her dream of becoming a writer. She worked hard, honing her craft and eventually publishing her first book, which was a critical and commercial success. Years passed, and Lena married and had a son. She was happy with her life, despite the pain of her childhood. Then one day, she received a call from her mother. Her father was ill, and they wanted to see her and her son. Lena hesitated, but ultimately agreed to meet them. When she arrived at their house, her parents were shocked by how successful Lena had become. They were even more surprised to learn that she had a son. As they talked, Lena realized that her parents had never truly understood her. They had wanted her to follow in their footsteps, never considering that she might have different dreams and passions. Lena forgave them, but she never forgot how they had treated her. When it was time for Lena and her son to leave, her parents stood frozen on the doorstep, unable to comprehend how their once-rejected daughter had become so successful and happy. Lena walked away, grateful for the life she had built for herself and her son, but still wounded by the pain of her childhood. As Lena walked away, she couldn't help but feel conflicted. On one hand, she was grateful for the success she had achieved and for the chance to reconnect with her parents. On the other hand, the wounds of her childhood were still raw, and the pain of their rejection had never truly gone away. In the days that followed, Lena found herself thinking more and more about her parents. She realized that despite everything, they were still her family, and that she wanted to try to repair their relationship. So Lena reached out to her parents and invited them to her home for dinner. At first, things were awkward and tense, but slowly, as they talked and shared stories, Lena and her parents began to find common ground. They talked about their regrets, about the pain they had caused each other, and about the hope they had for the future. Lena's son, who had been initially wary of his grandparents, even began to warm up to them. As the evening drew to a close, Lena's parents thanked her for the invitation and hugged her and her son tightly. They left, promising to stay in touch and to try to rebuild their relationship. In the weeks and months that followed, Lena's relationship with her parents continued to improve. They visited often, and Lena's son grew to love spending time with them. Although the scars of her childhood would always be a part of her, Lena was grateful for the chance to move forward and to build a new relationship with her family. And as she watched her parents play with her son, Lena couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. For the first time in years, she felt like she was truly home. Over time, Lena's parents became an integral part of her and her son's life. They helped take care of him when Lena had to work, and they often went on family outings together. Lena found herself growing closer to her parents than she ever thought possible. As the years passed, Lena's son grew up and left for college. Lena and her parents continued to stay in touch, but their visits became less frequent as they all got older. Then one day, Lena received a phone call from her mother. Her father had passed away, and she wanted Lena to come to the funeral. Lena was devastated by the news, but she knew that she had to be there for her mother. She packed a bag and headed to her hometown for the funeral. When she arrived, Lena was surprised to see how many people had come to pay their respects to her father. As she listened to their stories and memories, Lena realized that there was a side to her father that she had never truly known. Her father's passing also brought Lena and her mother closer together. They spent hours reminiscing about the past, laughing and crying together. Lena's mother told her how proud she was of all that Lena had accomplished and how much she loved her. As the funeral drew to a close, Lena found herself feeling grateful for the time she had spent with her parents. Although their relationship had been rocky at times, Lena knew that they loved her and that they were proud of her. As she hugged her mother goodbye, Lena realized that, despite everything, she had found a sense of peace with her family. She knew that the pain of her childhood would always be a part of her, but she also knew that she had been able to overcome it and build a new relationship with her parents. And as Lena drove away from her hometown, she couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. Despite the unexpected turns her life had taken, Lena knew that she had a family that loved her, and that, in the end, was all that really mattered. In the weeks that followed, Lena kept in touch with her mother and checked in on her regularly. She knew that losing her father had been difficult for her, and that she needed all the support she could get. As Lena settled back into her daily routine, she found herself reflecting on her own life and the lessons she had learned. She realized that, although her childhood had been painful, it had also taught her resilience and determination. She had overcome the obstacles that life had thrown her way and had built a successful career and a happy family. Lena knew that she had a lot to be grateful for, and that she had come a long way from the scared, rejected girl who had been kicked out of her home so many years ago. And then, one day, Lena received a surprise visitor at her door. It was her mother, but this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a young woman with a little boy in tow. "Lena, I would like you to meet your half-sister and your grandson," her mother said, tears in her eyes. Lena was speechless. She had no idea that she had a half-sister, let alone a nephew. Her mother explained that she had given birth to her daughter a few years after Lena had left home, and that she had given her up for adoption. Her daughter, now grown, had recently reached out to her and had connected with her grandson, who was eager to meet his family. Lena was stunned. She felt a mixture of emotions, surprise, confusion, and a little bit of fear. But as she looked at the young woman and her son, she also felt a sense of curiosity and a longing to connect with them. Over the next few hours, Lena sat with her mother and half-sister, getting to know each other and sharing stories. They talked about their childhood, about their parents, and about the life that Lena had built for herself. And as she watched her half-sister's little boy play with her own son's old toys, Lena realized that she had been given an unexpected gift, the chance to build a new relationship with her family and to create a new chapter in her life. As her mother and half-sister left, Lena hugged them tightly, feeling a sense of gratitude and hope for the future. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she also knew that she had the strength and resilience to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as she closed the door, Lena couldn't help but smile, feeling grateful for the unexpected twists and turns that had brought her to this moment, and excited for all the possibilities that lay ahead. In the days that followed, Lena spent a lot of time thinking about her newfound family and what it meant for her life. She had always felt like she was missing something, but she had never known exactly what it was until now. Lena reached out to her half-sister, and they started to build a relationship. They talked on the phone every week and shared stories about their lives. Lena also had the opportunity to meet her grandson and spend time with him. It was a strange feeling for Lena to have a new family member, but she welcomed it with open arms. As the months went by, Lena's relationship with her half-sister grew stronger, and they decided to meet up in person. They arranged to meet at a park in the city where Lena lived. When Lena saw her half-sister and her grandson, she felt a wave of emotion. They hugged each other tightly, and Lena felt like she had finally found a missing piece of her life. As they sat and talked, Lena's half-sister told her about her life and how she had always wondered about her biological family. Lena realized that she had missed out on so much by not knowing her sister growing up. Despite the pain of their past, Lena knew that she and her sister had a bright future together. They had each other, and they had a family that loved them. As they said goodbye, Lena's sister hugged her and thanked her for being a part of her life. Lena smiled and hugged her back, feeling grateful for the unexpected twist that had brought them together. As Lena walked away from the park, she couldn't help but think about the unexpected turns her life had taken. She had been kicked out of her home as a teenager, but now she had a successful career, a loving son, and a newfound family. She knew that life was unpredictable, but she also knew that it was full of surprises. Lena felt grateful for the unexpected twists and turns that had brought her to this point in her life and excited for all the possibilities that lay ahead. Months passed, and Lena's relationship with her half-sister continued to grow. They started to plan family gatherings and made sure to include each other in their lives. Lena was grateful for the second chance that she had been given, and she was determined to make the most of it. One day, Lena received a call from her mother. She had been diagnosed with cancer and needed Lena's help. Lena was shocked, but knew that she had to be there for her mother. She took a leave of absence from work and went to stay with her mother, who lived in a different state. During her time with her mother, Lena realized that she had been holding on to a lot of anger and resentment towards her parents. But as she saw her mother struggle with her illness, She knew that it was time to let go of those feelings and focus on the present. Lena spent hours talking to her mother, reminiscing about the past and sharing stories. They talked about the pain that had led to Lena being kicked out of her home, and Lena's mother apologized for what she had done. Lena felt a sense of closure, and she forgave her mother. They had a chance to start over, and Lena was grateful for it. As Lena's mother's condition worsened, Lena knew that she had to be strong for her. She was there for her mother until the very end, holding her hand and telling her that she loved her. After her mother's passing, Lena felt a sense of sadness, but also a sense of peace. She knew that her mother had loved her, even if it had taken a long time for her to show it. As Lena went back home, she reflected on the unexpected twists and turns that her life had taken. She had been kicked out of her home, but she had also found a new family and had been given the chance to rebuild her relationship with her mother. Lena realized that life was full of surprises, both good and bad, but it was up to her to take those surprises and make the most of them. She felt grateful for the unexpected twists and turns that had brought her to this point in her life and excited for all the possibilities that lay ahead. In the following months, Lena slowly adjusted to life without her mother. She focused on her career, spending time with her son, and building her relationship with her half-sister. One day, Lena received a call from her father. He wanted to meet with her. Lena was hesitant at first, but she agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. When Lena arrived, her father was already there. He looked older and more tired than she remembered. They ordered coffee and sat down to talk. Lena's father started by apologizing for what he had done to her. He said that he had been wrong to kick her out and that he had always regretted it. Lena listened as her father spoke, feeling a mix of emotions. After a while, Lena spoke up. She told her father about the unexpected twists and turns that her life had taken. She talked about her successful career, her son, and her newfound family. As Lena spoke, her father listened intently. When she finished, he apologized again and asked if there was anything he could do to make it up to her. Lena thought for a moment before responding. She asked if he wanted to meet his grandson. Her father agreed, and they arranged to meet the following week. When Lena's father met his grandson, he was overwhelmed with emotion. He held the baby in his arms, tears streaming down his face. Lena watched as her father held his grandson, feeling a sense of closure. As they said goodbye, Lena's father hugged her tightly and told her that he loved her. Lena hugged him back, feeling grateful for the unexpected twist that had brought them together. As Lena walked away from the coffee shop, she couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. She had forgiven her father, and they had a chance to start over. Lena knew that life was full of unexpected twists and turns, but she also knew that it was up to her to make the most of them. She felt grateful for the unexpected turns that had brought her to this point in her life and excited for all the possibilities that lay ahead. From that day on, Lena and her father slowly began to rebuild their relationship. They started to meet regularly, talking about their lives and sharing stories. Lena's father also began to visit his grandson more often, and Lena watched as he became more involved in his life. As time passed, Lena found herself growing closer to her father. She realized that despite their past, he had always loved her in his own way. She felt grateful for the unexpected twist that had brought them back together and excited to see where their relationship would go in the future. Years passed, and Lena's son grew up. He went to college and started a successful career of his own. Lena's father continued to visit, and Lena watched as he became an important part of her son's life. One day, Lena's father passed away peacefully in his sleep. Lena was devastated, but she also felt grateful for the time they had spent together. At her father's funeral, Lena stood up to give a speech. She talked about the unexpected twists and turns that had brought them to that moment, and how she had learned to forgive and move forward. Lena looked out at the crowd, feeling a sense of peace. She knew that her father had loved her, even if it had taken a long time for him to show it. She felt grateful for the unexpected twists and turns that had brought them to that moment and excited for all the possibilities that lay ahead. As Lena walked away from her father's funeral, she knew that life was full of surprises, both good and bad, but she also knew that it was up to her to take those surprises and make the most of them. She felt grateful for the unexpected twists and turns that had brought her to that moment and excited for all the possibilities that lay ahead. Lena knew that her life was full of potential, and she was determined to make the most of it. In the years that followed, Lena continued to build her career and her relationships. She found love and got married, and she and her husband welcomed 2 more children into their family. Lena's son grew up to be a successful businessman. and he often talked about the influence that his grandfather had had on his life. Lena felt grateful that her father had been able to be a part of her son's life, even if it had been for a short time. As Lena watched her family grow and thrive, she often thought back to the unexpected twist that had brought her father back into her life. She knew that life was full of surprises, and she was grateful for the ones that had brought her to that moment. Lena knew that she had learned a valuable lesson about forgiveness and acceptance. She knew that even when life took unexpected turns, it was up to her to make the most of them. As she looked back on her life, Lena felt proud of all that she had accomplished. She knew that the unexpected twists and turns had made her stronger and more resilient, and she was excited to see where the next chapter of her life would take her.